My name's Gillian Johnson. My maiden name was Atkinson, and my connection with Portland Works goes back to the 1950s. My father and uncle ran a firm here called the Atkinson and Sons Limited, which had been started by my grandfather, Edward Atkinson, back in the Second World War, we think. We've not got an actual date, but we think it's back in sometime during the Second World War. And our factory, our workshop, made painters' tools. Things like screwdrivers and scrapers, all this kind of edge tool, as they were called in the trade. It was very Victorian in those days, in the 1950s, hardly changed at all, I don't think, from the time the works was established, except that we had electricity. It had originally been run on gas and steam power, I think, but it was electricity by the time I got involved. I used to accompany my father when he went out on his trips to what we used to call the outworkers, which were the people that used to make the blanks that we then ground down and finished and put the handles on and got the finished item out. So that was a regular job that he used to go around every couple of days or so, picking up work from the grinders that we used outside. And sometimes I used to go around with him, mainly just because I used to like the trip out in the school holidays and things like that. It was nice to go to these factories with the tremendous heat and the fire and the steam. It was really quite frightening in a way, but it was exciting as well. But as I got older, I actually managed to get a bit of money by coming and working here in the school holidays. And I always tell the story to the people who are helping out here at Portland Works now about the time at the end of the 50s, early 60s, where I was working during one of the school holidays to get a bit of extra pocket money. So I'd be in my sort of early teens, and I'd probably be about 13 or 14, too young actually to be in a workplace, but there we are. They didn't have health and safety as much in those days. And one of the things that we did was we made these screwdrivers, and we made them for a very big order that we had for Woolworths, which at that time sold just about everything you could want to buy. And we were making screwdrivers for them. And we had this very big order, and the thing that was special about them really was that they were being sold for people doing do-it-yourself painting and decorating. So we had a very big order for what these were, which were small black-handled screwdrivers. I don't know how much they would have been in those days, not very much at all, they'd been fairly cheap. But the sort of marketing gimmick at the time was that Britain was trying to get people to know that we were a place that actually made things, that we were a country that made things. And so it was called Back in Britain, and Made in Britain was the big thing. And we got, to go along with these screwdrivers, as a supply of small sort of sellotape stickers which had a Union flag on it saying Made in Britain. And my job throughout the school holidays was to come in every day, find a great big pile of these on the workbench and a pile of these Union Jack stickers. And then I had to take a pair of scissors and cut each of these Union Jacks off the roll and stick it on the screwdriver. And then I would pack the screwdrivers into boxes, either 6 or 12. That was half dozens or dozens, which was the unit that we sold in those days. And it was really, that lasted for about 4 weeks of the 6-week summer holidays. And it was just a case of coming in every day and seeing a new mountain of screwdrivers and a new pile of Union Jack stickers, and just sitting at the workbench and working down the pile until it was time to go home, and then coming back the next day and repeating the whole process all over again. So that's my memory of working here at the time. But that only lasted really until about the early 70s. And by then, things were getting very difficult in this country because a lot of imports were coming in from abroad and they were cheaper than we were making them here. So things were getting quite difficult for a lot of firms, the big firms and the small firms. And sadly, it was about that time when my father, Albert Atkinson, although he was always called Mick by everybody, that was the time when he died suddenly. And my uncle didn't want to carry on his own. He really felt it was too much. So he negotiated a deal with a firm that we had been making screwdrivers and tools for that was based in Dronfield. And we left Portland Works. That would be in about 1973. We left Portland Works, and the connection was broken with this building. It wasn't quite broken with the tool trade, because although my uncle retired after about 18 months, his son, my cousin, started work for the firm, and he worked for them right up until he retired a few years ago. So he carried on working for the tool manufacturing business. So when I saw Portland Works was being rescued, I hadn't really realised that it was in danger, because I'd moved away from Sheffield and was living in Doncaster. But then I saw it was being rescued, and I thought I'd come back and see what was happening. So I did, and I came round on one of the open days, just as they were negotiating to buy the building. And I've been coming back as a volunteer really ever since, off and on, for open days and things like that. I just think it's wonderful to see how this building and the work that it did is being remembered, but is being brought into a modern 21st century, with people still on site, still making things, and still being proud to stamp made in Sheffield or made in England on whatever it is that they're doing.